Hello, and welcome to the Ticking Along podcast, where we talk about Tourette's and our other life experiences. If you'd like to be on the show or have any comments, you can contact me at tickingalong@gmail.com. That's TICINGLONG@gmail.com. Now let's get into the show.
Thanks again for inviting me on the podcast. Yeah, it's actually been a difficult week. We're settling into the whole lockdown extension and that, and we've heard that our businesses still can't open. So you can't worry about that. You can't sit. You can either go up or go down, and we choose to go up. So we come into terms with that. But from a Tourette's point of view, I had a terrible tic attack walking into the kitchen a few days ago, and I elbowed, in the movies when you see somebody elbowing somebody in a fight, I elbowed the cupboard, but I got the full force of my arm, so I didn't just get my elbow or anything, and I got the full force of my arm, and it sent like a shockwave up into my neck and in my head. And at the time, it didn't feel that bad. It gave me a fright and it upset my wife and that. But, then about 2 days later, which was Thursday, I started having these incredible pains and, just couldn't sleep since Thursday. So I've realized I've got like a pinched nerve running from my neck down in my shoulders. And it's been so painful. I haven't even been making clips, I just can't sit in front of the camera and, pretend that everything is all right because you've just got this constant pain. So that's been a bit rough. And, when things like that happen, then I realize how difficult Tourette's actually is. And then I start, getting upset at all the people that don't understand Tourette's. And then I get upset at the people that don't want to sponsor my work. And then I get upset at the shopkeepers that laugh at me. So, but otherwise it's, just been another week. Still lots of problems in the country. People don't want to be in lockdown, but it's been forced on us. So, but we've got our health. My wife's happy. I'm happy. So, it's a good week. How was your week?
Well, it was definitely a more brutal week than it had been. So I've got so much work now that I can't. There's no way for me to keep up. Not that I've set any deadlines that I can't really get to, but just it's gotten so far back, and I want to be able to get to people as quick as possible and all of that. And it's just I've got, as of yesterday, a 3-month wait for, if anybody else comes on, it's going to be 3 months, 3.5 months before I can get to them. Which it's a good problem to have, but I don't want to. I don't like that people have to wait so long to, for me to be able to get to them. And then my Tourette's has had a huge uptick in severity this week. I was driving to my dad's Thursday, and I was driving my wife's car, and as I was coming through Hendersonville, I started to my breathing started to really increase, and I started to kind of hyperventilate because of a breathing tic. And I just had to really focus on slowing my breathing. And it really concerns me that my tics tend to increase when I'm driving, because I can't really do my work without driving. And also you lose so much freedom, especially in the U.S. when you're not able to drive. At least in the areas of the U.S. that I live in, there's not any public transport, and then getting anywhere that you'd want to go, it's it's a 20-minute drive. You can't walk that far. Um, so I I've I don't think that I'll have to stop driving, but it may come to that point. And then um, just the I don't know the severity of my tics just seems to have gone way up. Not to the point to where I would call it severe. I'd still say that it's moderate. But um, the way that mine work is they come in waves. So I'll go through and not be ticking, for maybe hours. But then when I get in the car or whenever I get to the point to where my tics think that they can, uh, act on themselves or whatever, I'll go through some sort of tick attack. Um, and uh, when I'm home, I've got neighbors, so I don't want to be loud and ticking because I don't want to annoy them. And then uh, when I'm out working, I don't want to be ticking in front of people. And so the only times that I feel kind of comfortable letting them out is when I'm alone in my car, and then motor ticks I can let out when I'm home. Uh, but I still kind of don't feel comfortable doing it. Uh, Not that knowledge wise, I don't have a problem with it. Um, I know that there's no I don't there's something blocking me, not not in the sense that I feel like I shouldn't be ticking. Well, not that in the sense that I think I shouldn't be ticking, but in the sense that I feel like I shouldn't. And then it took me until yesterday. So it took me all week to get the podcast edited down. Um, so that was, and I I don't know. I'm busy with work, and then I get distracted other times when I'm home, and it's hard to sit at a screen and just look at this, and the way that the podcast is edited, it's just got a waveform across the screen, and it's just a big just a big wall of a line going up and down across the screen. And so it's daunting to go through and just edit it down and listen it back. And usually when I'm working, I've got something in the background that I can listen to and kind of focus on, or kind of have half of my brain focusing on, so I'm not uh, ticking as much and stuff like that. But when you're editing down audio, you can't do that. You can't be doing anything else. You're only able to focus on that. You need your arms to be focusing on that to move the mouse and the sliders and everything. And then uh, and then you need your ears to listen back to it. So you can't have anything uh, other than that as your complete focus. And it's kind of hard to do that, at least for what I've taught my brain to do.
But
Um, so it's
do you
an
enjoy doing
interesting
the
week.
podcast? Do you enjoy
Um,
doing like editing and that? I'm trying to answer all your questions now in one. Like you have that job and it seems like it's demanding now, which is good from a financial point of view. You guys want to buy a house and all of that. But is there any way that you could maybe have a career change in time? Like, because you seem very good with your technological, your techno stuff, like your channel, your podcast. Is there any way that you could maybe make this part of your life?
well, I mean, I kind of liked, the job that I've got. I mean, it's kind of got. I need something, physically to do. I don't. I mean, I could sit in front of a computer all day and do all that, but I don't think that I could do the YouTube stuff enough to where uh, I would have a big enough channel, because the editing side of videos, I'm just not really that interested in, or I don't I don't know it enough, and I'm not um, good enough at it. And you could say that, but I mean, you can always get better at things. Just a little bit of training and research and stuff. But I like what I do for a job. It kind of has enough of physical work in it, and then I'm out at marinas and stuff, so I get some fresh air. And so I like the job I've got. Um, it's so and I don't think that I want to do YouTube and podcasting as a job, because then it then becomes a job and it's something that you have to do. Whereas now it's something that I do because I want to do it, and when I want to do it and stuff like
Okay.
that.
So, do you think you're gonna get somebody to work with you, or you're gonna have to commission some of your work out? How are you gonna get rid of the load?
Well, just probably just slowly at a time. I don't know anyone that could really do the work that I do. Um, it takes a lot of time to get used to the industrial sewing machine that I've got, just because it goes the foot pedal is so sensitive, um, that um, it's kind of like learning how to drive. When you first start driving, getting used to maintaining speed and knowing what's around your surroundings and all that. So it's similar in that, and then um, and then knowing how to pattern things out and everything else. So my the way that I've got my setup is pretty much, if you're doing the work, you have to do everything. So you have to be the one to go out and talk to the person to see what they want, or for the most part, you have to. There's some things that you can see, it's just standard cover, but there's a lot of times where you have to know exactly what the customer wants. Um, you've got to be the one who saw it on the boat, and then you have to be the one to put it back on the boat, and you have to be the one to pattern it so you know what all the marks mean and what you're marking it for, and then you have to be the one to sew it up, because if you're not the one sewing it up, then some of the marks can get confused as other marks, and everything else. So it's kind of something that you have to do from the beginning of the job to the end. Whereas if I could standardize the marks a little more, and make it uh, easier to recognize where everything was going, um, I could have somebody just doing the sewing machine and somebody just doing the patterning. But then I don't know if the work would carry through the entire time. And then I don't want to have the pressure of not only needing to do enough work to provide for my family, but also having to
Yeah.
support an employee or something else. Um, so that's my problem with that. I mean, I've been told that I needed to hire on people. I've been told that I need to branch out and get people kind of uh, to branch out to other areas and set up another shop there and have an employee there, and then but I don't know. It's a
No, I
lot of
can
pressure to do
understand.
that.
Where do you keep your sewing machine? Does that travel with you wherever you go?
So we've got right now. My shop is in my mom's garage, and it's a two-car garage. We've got a table that's like a 20 feet by 17-foot table, um, and or 19 feet by 20 or 19 foot by 17-foot table, and so I've got the sewing machine in the garage there, and then we've got a old U-Haul box truck that we've converted into being a mobile shop, and it's got a small table in the back there with a smaller sewing machine that we can use for repairs. But currently, the truck isn't operating. It's got something wrong with the fuel pump probably. And I replaced the fuel pump and drove. Uh, it was a very kind of stressing drive because the fuel pump went out and I got stranded in uh, I got stranded in Hendersonville twice with the truck, and the first time, I drove it down there, stopped at a bank, and tried to start up the engine, and it wouldn't start. And so after we replaced the battery, thinking it was our battery, it starts up, and then after that, um, I drive it, and I go to a different bank a couple weeks later, and it doesn't start up again. And so I check the battery. The battery's charged. It's no problem. And I just try starting it up. It doesn't start. So come to find out, the fuel pump was bad, and so I didn't realize this until actually the third time I got stuck in it. So after that, I waited like an hour and a half, and it finally started that time. And then I took it to go get gas in it and test out, and so I went to fill it up, and I got stuck at the gas station 2 miles from my house. And that time we couldn't get the truck to start, so I got stuck there for like 2 hours waiting for the mechanic to show up. And then so we had to have the truck towed back to the house. And so come to find out, it's the fuel pump. I replaced the fuel pump. I kind of hodgepodged it together by I had to drill new holes in the tank and then get a new screw set up. And then I put caulking around it to seal it. But so it's not, done as properly as it could have been. And I pinched the wiring when I put it back up. So I don't know if that may have broken some wirings in it. But then after that, I had to take a frame down to, was it Cookville, I think. Yeah. And so that was a 2-hour drive in a truck that I wasn't sure if it would start again. And so I drive down there, I put the frame on, I start the truck back up, get it home, and no problems. The next, a couple days later, I go to start up the truck, won't start. So, and it's been sitting there since then. So it's been sitting there for a couple months. Uh, so I've got to get the mechanic to take a look at it and see what we can do there. But yeah, so we don't have a mobile shop now, and I'm thinking it may be better just to get a pull behind trailer, and then put a shop in there, a portable shop in there. That way you don't have to worry about maintaining an additional engine. You just have your own car engine, and then whenever you want to take the mobile shop, you just hook up to the trailer. Which it's a little harder to drive a trailer than it would be just to drive a truck, but as far as ease of use and not having to deal with an additional engine and all that, it may be a better idea. So that I don't know. And then right now I'm looking for right now I'm kind of just waiting because I tried getting a mortgage, but because I don't have a credit, they didn't want to give me a loan for a home until I've got to refile my taxes, or I've got to wait until I file my taxes again for this year. So I've got to wait till like next February to show that my income has increased, for them to be able to qualify me for a mortgage. And then once we get there, then I've got to find a house that's got a two-car garage or something equivalent of that, to where I can put my shop there. And then I'll have my shop in my own house. But until then, I've got the setup at my mom's
So
garage.
realistically, when do you
Uh,
think you'll move into
so
your own
yeah.
house with you and your wife?
Um, I'm seeing next summer. So probably we got file taxes February. Then you gotta uh get approved for pre-approved for a mortgage. So February, March, late March probably. Then I'm looking for a house in April, May. So then I can probably close on it sometime in June or July. So a year or so. But by then I'll have a lot saved up. I mean, I'm making probably 2,000. I've brought in on average $2,000 a month. Um, and then my wife has brought in her income, which is gone to paying bills. And now with the extra stimulus money and unemployment that we're getting, we're putting away a lot of money each month for towards the house. Um, so my goal right now uh, is to put um, get 30,000 saved up for a down payment on the house, which on the upper pricing of a house that I wanted to buy, which was 150,000, uh, that would be 20% down, and then on top of that, currently I've got a 6,000 emergency fund. I want to get that up to 10,000, so having 40,000 total in my savings before I put the down payment down. And then after that, once I get those two things, then if we're still waiting around to get a mortgage, I'm gonna put you know the rest of my money towards a furniture fund for the house. So getting I'll probably have to get a refrigerator, possibly a stove, and then some other furnitures, uh, for around the house and stuff. Um, and then additional moving costs and all of that. So I mean, money wise, I don't think I'll have a problem money wise. The only thing is the system is so set up on credit cards that without using credit cards, they don't want to give you a loan, which to me doesn't make any sense because I don't have any debt. I don't even have a car payment. I've got I've been putting away $2,000 every month or more, and I've got all this extra money, and if I move out of here, I'm not paying I wouldn't be paying uh this the rent payment here. So I'm making enough money to pay it, and I pay all my bills before they're even due. So logically, if I could actually sit down and talk to somebody who could actually has control over things and can think through things, uh, I, I've got enough money to where I can do it. But someone else making my money who isn't smart with money, who goes through, which is the average person who goes through and has a car payment, who goes through and spends a lot on going out to eat or going to movies or something else, they wouldn't have this extra money. And so and someone my age has the tendencies to not be as uh, has the tendencies to not think through things as much, so they're a
Yeah.
bit more in the moment, so tend to spend more money. So I'm dealing with that, and I don't want to get a credit card because I mean to do that I could get a credit card and then just buy my groceries using a credit card and then pay it back immediately and all that.
No,
But I don't think that I should have to do that,
but I
and
commend you
so
for the way you're thinking, but I
I don't
do
know.
sit here with a big smile on my face because my wife and I have been through that. as well. We both were people that didn't like any debt, and we were both people that, bought everything cash. But honestly, to get help from the bank, you have to have credit. Because the banks are there to make money. The banks aren't there to help you. The banks, the more you owe other people, the more the banks are going to loan you money. Like
Oh, well,
even now,
yeah.
my wife, we took a personal loan when we got married, and then we've had a credit card that, like, because I don't have a medical aid, I think the
Mhm.
credit card was there for like in a medical emergency for me or whatever. And now we can owe the bank masses of money, and they will still send us messages. Do you want more money? And people who owe the bank millions. There are
Yeah.
people. There are South African farmers that owe the bank twice a year millions and millions of rand, and they can get credit quite easily. But I,
Yeah.
I, I wanted a credit card about 10 years ago, no, less, about 6 years ago. I wanted a credit card because it just made sense to me to not carry cash on me and all of that. And I went to the bank also with your attitude, and I said, listen, I don't owe the bank anything. You can see there's a couple of thousand rand in my bank. I have no debt. And they said, no, it's not going to work. But if you go open a clothing account and say spend 1,000 rand on the clothing account, and I did that, and I went back to the bank that same day and I got a credit card. And it did make sense to me because I got myself into debt to get
Yeah.
more money.
Yeah, and they make more money off of people who have more debt. The more debt that you have, the more money they're going to make. Um, but and there's a mortgage place that's got I think their headquarters is in Nashville, and that's um, Churchill Mortgage. And they're one that they tend to work with people who don't have a credit score, but in order to do that, they do it based off of your monthly income over the past 2 years, and and then they do it by you have to have two lines of alternate credit, which are two bills that you've paid, showing that you've paid two bills for the past year. Um, so I can use I've got that. The only problem that I've come up against is my income. So in 2018, I only made $9,000. In 2019, I made $18,000. So when you divide that by 24 months, it doesn't give you enough. And then in talking to them, they were saying that if I made, because I told them, I'm projecting to make about $24,000 this year, and they were saying that once I got that, that they shouldn't have any problems qualifying me. Um, so if I'm making 24,000 dollars a year, that would be enough to qualify me. The other problem was we couldn't use my wife's credit because she hadn't been working for 2 years. So until you're working for 2 years, they can't qualify you. Um, and she recently, because of coronavirus stuff, got laid off from her job, and she's looking at changing her job to working at a different store. And I'm not sure if that will affect it if you have to be in the same job for 2 years or not. Um, but it didn't. Some people, the way they were talking, it sounded like you did, and then other people, it sounded like you didn't. So I'll have to look at that when I get there. Um, but once I file taxes again and show that my income is at the right level, if I still have problems, I think that I could get my mom to co-sign on it for me, and then um, I'd be able to get the loan, and then once um, after a couple years, I could then refinance and take her off of it so that she's not liable for it. But that wouldn't really be ideal because I mean I don't want her to be
I think what
responsible
you got to do is
for my
just bite
payment
the
if I
bullet,
don't
go get
pay.
a credit card, and tell your wife and you yourself that it's either for your weekly groceries or not even a credit card. Why don't you go open, go to, I don't know
Yeah.
what kind of clothing stores you have there, but we've got like Woolworths and Markhams. Yeah. So go get an account for her and an account for yourself, and go out and buy $500 worth of clothing on your credit, and then give that credit card back $20 until next year. And I guarantee you it's going to give you a good credit score.
Yeah, well, and another thing that that someone recommended was me being put on somebody else's credit who already has good credit. Um, so like if I was added as an authorized user, which I mean I think that my dad might be able to do for me. My dad's got great credit. He's got a credit score of uh, seven, almost 800. Um, so he's got a really good credit score. He only uses a credit card mainly for gas. So anytime he fills up for gas, he just puts it on a credit card and then pays it back at the end of the month. Um, so he's got a really good credit score, and I might be able to be put on as an authorized user. And then and it wouldn't have to I wouldn't have to have a card or anything. I just be be put on as authorized user, and then that would then activate my credit line, and then some cards would show a credit as early as a month. Sometimes it takes a couple 3 months to actually you know be at the right level of
Does your
credit.
dad still work,
But
your
that was another
biological
option.
father?
Yeah, yeah, he's a probation parole officer. Well, no, they took off
Oh,
the
wow, that's
officer title,
interesting.
so he does probation and parole. Um, but yeah, and I was looking on the Tourette's Reddit, um, and there was someone kind of talking about or asking about kind of the feeling of um, of Tourette's and saying, is it like a voice in your head saying that you need to do this? And other people like the kind of top comment that I saw on there was do you have Tourette's? And the person was like, no, I'm just kind of wondering. And from what I understood, the guy had like OCD, which is a very close um, disorder or very connected disorder with Tourette's. Um, but the way that people were describing it is it's more of a pressure rather than a thought.
Yeah, that Reddit, I'm posting some of my videos there every now and again, but I don't think they get many views from Reddit. I don't know what the problem is, but I've also seen questions like that. And a lot of conservative people, like here in the Afrikaans community where we are, a lot of people have approached me and said, isn't Tourette's like a curse? Isn't it like because of the vocal is 9 times out of 10 something offensive. Like I have the ability to say disgusting things to my wife, and I don't think she's ever said a swear word in her whole life. And a lot of people think, oh, are you possessed by a devil, or
Mm-hmm.
is it the bad part of you trying to come out? I just get irritated because people are so ignorant. And I always tell people when they ask me a question, I say, do you really want to know the answer, or are you just like trying to make conversation? Because if you really want to know the answer, I'm going to give you a few places to go Google or a few books to read. And, it'll take you 10, 15 minutes and you're going to come up with a real answer. And it's not going to be the devil telling me to say the F word or something like that. So it's a lot of ignorance, and a lot of people just, too lazy to go do a bit of research.
Yeah, well, and it is kind of a hard thing to understand because it's, you've got these, there are, disorders, or there are, oh, what do they call them? There are there are behavioral disorders where, it's a lack of behavioral control, which, a lot of people kind of will kind of have an idea that Tourette's is somewhat of a behavioral disorder, but it's not. It's a neurological impulse um, problem. So it's not that we have a lack of impulse control, but it's a pressure, and the neurons firing incorrectly, or in a way that they shouldn't. Um, so it's not so much of, I need to do this, as much as it's my body is doing this, and there's nothing I can do about that. I mean, you're if you know it's kind of hard to get analogies for it, because it's something that doesn't really, it's just so non-intuitive that you wouldn't have, control over your movements, and it's not really something that normal people would experience, um other than, the how they describe sneezing, but it's not the same as sneezing. And they always people always say that analogies break down at some point. You can only get so far with an analogy. And so with the sneezing analogy, I don't usually like using that one, because it doesn't quite seem right, right enough to me, but it does get at parts of Tourette's. So with sneezing, you do get this feeling that you're going to need to sneeze before, like you do with tics. But then, um, and it'll build and build until you sneeze. But there are things that you can do to kind of not sneeze.
This is a question that I'm getting asked all the time. And, I have a lot of people contacting me through YouTube, so much so that this friend of mine in Ireland that did my website, he's busy trying to set something up that I can start, people can get hold of me through my website or something, and I can actually start charging, like to do a course on that, and like to enlighten people. Because people ask me, and I'm not talking, you and I are friends. I'm talking about people that don't have much contact with me. You and I talk like almost every day, or like send a message, and then we're friends, and people will say, like, I can't understand this tick in my child, and, is it like a sneeze? And the sneezing one, I also use if somebody just wants a quick answer, because you can't hold back a sneeze or a cough. But actually what a tick feels like and why it happens, I actually don't have that answer. Because now with this injury in my back and my neck and that, I'm managing to keep my ticks into a degree. But I know for a fact that when I've got full movement and I'm healed, I know for a fact I'm in for a terrible few days, because there's this pressure building up in my head where I actually want to go into the bathroom and force myself to have a whole lot of vocal tics, because my body is actually experiencing a whole lot of chemical unhappiness, because these tics need to come out, but they're not, because every time I tick, my my back and my neck hurts. So it's an incredibly difficult thing to explain, but it's the most real thing I've ever had to deal with, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Man, the regular, normal, low end ticks, I can deal with that. And what always gets to me is mainly the pressure and the tenseness that builds just throughout the day and stuff when you're not, ticking. And it's not that I don't want to tick, but it's like my body doesn't
Mm.
want me to tick, but yet I still have that urge. And until I get to a point where I'm, kind of alone, uh,
Mm.
it doesn't want to let me express it. Um, so that just unease feeling, can get you. I would compare it similar to someone with like anxiety, and you just have this, you know tenseness, and it's, just, and I'm glad that now I at least know, that it's because of the ticks and stuff like that. Whereas, for, years, I had this feeling and I just didn't know why. Um, and that really bothers me, or really bothered me at the time. Uh, but the ticks aren't as bad as the other things that come along with it, at least in my experience. Um, Beyond
No, I hear
possibly
you.
other than driving.
And that also is what, you know,
Uh,
it's, I'm scared what I was, I'm scared I'm going to forget what I wanted to say. So I'm going to say this first is that, there is such a need for Tourette's awareness. It is unbelievable. And I'm not a spiritual person, but, I don't know if you maybe feel there's a reason why we've got in contact with each other, but a lot is happening in my life, and it's all leading towards, like, that there's got to be awareness about Tourette's because it is such a difficult syndrome to live with. And there was a question asked on Reddit the other day: is Tourette's, was it Reddit or was it the Facebook group? I don't know. Somebody asked the question: is Tourette's a disability? And I took a minute and I thought, now, can we call it a disability? And then I thought, yeah, I definitely see it. Okay, disability, people who are disabled don't like to be called disabled because, it's mind over matter many times in life. But for me, it's a complete disability because I think this time last year, I actually wanted to say to my wife this morning, this time last year, I was earning so much money and I was actually doing so well. I was running almost two businesses. I had my photography that wasn't doing too well, but then I had the massage business. I was in peak fitness. I was walking, I was running. And now, a year later, I'm not able to do any of those things. So that is a disability. It takes away the ability to do something. And that is where the awareness needs to come in because people actually have no idea how bad Tourette's is. My tics, I can live with my tics. I'm so blessed to have such a phenomenal wife, and I'm blessed to have in-laws like I do that, it's embarrassing being around me. I feel embarrassed for myself, but I can live with the tics. But what I can't live with is when I go, into a shop or I go see somebody, like the people that do my photography. It's a shop called M&M. I'm trying to get a really professional relationship with them because, I give them money and they help me make money. But but talking to them and having this fear that I'm going to call because it's a
yeah,
strange looking lady. She's, rather big and she's got this red hair. She's the most beautiful person and she deals with me so nicely on a personal relationship, on a business relationship. But every time I go in there, I want to call her a fathead ginger, you know, and that is not who I am. But I have this fear that every time I go
mm,
in there, I think, flip, is this
yeah,
going to be the day where I call her name? And my wife as well. My wife is a small woman. She's tiny. I think she weighs like 50 kilograms or something. And I want to say the most atrocious things to her. we'll get in bed and I think, oh, we can be romantic, but then I'm so scared I'm going to say something like bad people say. And living with that, the fear of saying something bad, or like swearing in front of my in laws who are very spiritual. And people don't understand what it's like living with that fear. When are we
Hmm.
going to stand in front of somebody who's 6'8" and call them, if it's a black person, call them the K word or the N word? You know, that is underlying fear that people with Tourette's live with on a daily basis, on an hourly basis.
Yeah. Yeah, and I imagine it would be a bit more um, bring a bit more concern when you're living in um, a bigger city and stuff like that, where you're not where you don't have as much kind of separation between people. Where I live, I've I, for the most part, I can go around and I'm just can stay to myself. Other than, I mean, I do live in a uh, an apartment complex, but I mean, I just have neighbors on one side of me. Um, I don't have anyone above me or below me or anything like that. So I've got, just on one side of, uh, having connecting wall. So there's that. But like, if I was living in an area such as like New York or something like that, where it's more of the time where you're like walking to places and or taking public transportation and stuff like that. um I can't imagine the amount of stress that would add to me, going through and you know taking, because at that point you can't just tick when you're alone, because you're
Mm.
really never alone because of the way that the world's set up over there. Uh, so it, and there's been people that have told stories of people calling them out or saying these things, and people, a lot of people don't know about Tourette's. So bringing more awareness to it is definitely a good thing. That way we can, when people see people ticking, they can understand that they don't, either that they don't mean what they say, or that they don't have control over what they're doing.
What I wanted to say is the awareness, and that is something I want to talk to you about. And that's why I said I want to talk about it on the podcast, like regarding to donations and people supporting my work. But I don't just want it to be me. I want it to be something that I'd love you to get involved with as well. These Tourette associations and everything, and please, I'm not bad mouthing them, but I don't see enough informative work going into it, and especially in this country. Like, I honestly, if I can get $1,000 a month, like equivalent to 18,000 rand a month, in rands, the freedom it's going to give me to go help schools and everything, and to help people, educate people, not only about Tourette's, but about disabilities. And it's something that I'm becoming almost desperate about because it needs help. And the other day, I subscribed to the American Tourette's Association. I don't know if you're part of them on YouTube. Have you subscribed?
Yeah, I'm subscribed to them on YouTube. I saw that they had posted
Yeah.
something on
But
Tourette's
just
and
before that, the lady
college.
came on and she made an announcement, and she
Yesterday,
said
I think.
something like 80 or 90% of people are living with Tourette's and they don't know they've got it. And the more I'm observing, like going out in my day to day life, trying to start this flipping organization, I'm becoming more and more aware of young children that are having Tourette's, if not Tourette's, like having a tic disorder. And like that movie, Front of the Class or whatever, that boy who's got Tourette's,
Yeah,
who became a teacher, you know, and my wife, I see it with my wife when people come in
yeah,
here as students. I see that they've got these like inclinations that are now OCD, you know, a little bit obsessive compulsive. But if they knew about Tourette's, they could start working on it and start becoming educated about it. You know what I mean? And that is what is so needed. And people are just clueless
Mm-hmm.
in this country. You know, a month ago, I was being told by a doctor. I sat in line for 6 hours to see a doctor, and you know, you can imagine me trying to sit still for 6 hours. No joke. And eventually, I got to her, and I said, "No, I'm here to book. I need certification to be for my Tourette's, and I want to know if there isn't sort of like slight medication that can just help the tics." And she dropped her pen, and she was a fully qualified doctor, and she said to me, "But what is Tourette's?" And I honestly thought she was joking. So
Yeah.
I like giggled a little bit, and I looked around at the doctors that were with her because it was a government hospital. Not one of them knew off the top of their head what Tourette's was. Eventually, when I said to them, Tourette syndrome, you know, like when people, and then I started having a lot of vocal because I started getting upset. Oh, is that Tourette's? And I thought, if these are medical doctors that have just studied for 8 years that do not understand what Tourette's is, how much, you know, how less not what is it for? What is the English word? Sorry, I'm just trying to. Yeah, lack of knowledge. You know, the lack of knowledge that people
Lack of
in
knowledge.
schools must have. And I really got panicky, and I thought, I battle with Tourette's as a 42-year-old man who's been to prison. I've been in gangs. I've had a rough life. I can handle myself, but Tourette's intimidates me. What about the cute little girl who's 15 years old, starting to be attractive, wants to go on dates, and she's got this terrible condition that she knows nothing about? That's where I want people like you and I to come in and take over the world. No, not take over the world, but you know what I mean. Like, really, I've got a lot of passion for this disorder.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely think that there needs to be more awareness for it. And, the Tourette's Association of America and all that, they do well for, explaining, what accommodations you can get and kind of uh, what, um, what the law allows and all that. But, I don't see a lot of kind of the everyday kind of situational kind of stuff that you can that kind of I think that I would find more um, interesting and more beneficial. Uh, so what they do is important, but there's a podcast done by Ben. I can't remember his last name, but his name is Ben, and he does the Tourette's podcast. And he goes on, and he's got the Tourette's Association of America kind of help sponsor him, and he does interviews with people with Tourette's. And I don't know how often he posts, but every week or so, there'll be a new interview, and he just kind of goes through and kind of talks with people of how they deal with their Tourette's and kind of how what their experience with it has been, and I find that to be better and more helpful than a lot of what the Tourette's Association of America does. Um, but for the Tourette's Association of America, they're more on the clinical side of things, which is definitely good to have. Have you heard of CBIT? It's a relatively new therapy that's designed for Tourette's, and the general idea of it is you go through and really pick up on the uh, the urge that comes before you tick, and then once you can recognize that, you then so you would focus on individual ticks one at a time. So if you had a problematic tick of say hitting yourself, you would go through and focus on that urge uh, uh, to do that tick, and really um, familiarize yourself with being able to recognize when you get that urge, and then um, what you would want to then come up with is a competing response. So something that you can do opposite of that
No,
tick, to where you wouldn't be doing that tick, but instead doing something else. Um, so if you're with a hitting tick, you'd want to, instead of bring your hand closer to yourself, you'd be wanting to put it away, and so it's about kind of doing opposites to your ticks, and really being able to recognize the urge that comes with them, and stuff like that. Um, and there was a YouTube video that I watched of a guy kind of describing what they go through, and how it works. Um, and he said that it's not a therapy to get rid of ticks and to stop ticks, but it's a therapy to make them less intrusive and to kind of redirect. So it's mainly a redirectional therapeutic technique. Um, yeah, because with ticks, they are suggestible, and they are uh, somewhat redirectional. Um, even so, when you go through and focus on one tick at a time, trying to fix the most. You go through and line out which one is your most intrusive one, and the one that gives you the most problems, and you focus on that one,
yeah.
and kind of work it into a situation where it wouldn't cause as much of a problem. And I've heard a lot of people have you
I
know
wanted to ask, I was watching your
benefits
you. This has to do
from
with
doing
ticks and
that.
that. I was watching your YouTube ticking along the other day, and I was going through your videos, and I came across that one that has had over 2,000 views, and I'm proud of you for getting all those views. I don't know how you did it. I'm quite
Yeah.
jealous, but it saddened me terribly because, and it also upset my wife quite a bit. But if we may ask those who are listening and me that is talking to you, what set that off? Because your tics, and I actually have noticed in your last two videos that your Tourette's is getting a bit bad, and I wanted to ask you privately and personally, is everything all right? But what set those degree of tics off so badly, if you can tell the listeners, because that is Tourette's at its worst. What did you ever fight with somebody? If you're willing to talk about it.
No, I had family over at my dad's house, and I was over there for the week, and so I was suppressing my ticks the entire time, and really, um, it was really the first time that I'd had to suppress so much and not, express the ticks. And I say had to. I mean, I probably didn't have to, but uh, none of my family. I mean, my sister knows that I have ticks, and I've talked to my brother about it. But I haven't talked to either of my parents about it. Um, so they don't really know, that I've got them. And then we had extended family over, and so I was holding them in, and so throughout the entire week. And then when I was leaving, uh, I'm like, yeah, I should not be suppressing anymore, and I really need to let them out, because just the unease would definitely get to me. And then once they kind of started, they ramped up, and couldn't really be stopped without um, a lot of focus. And then and then if you're going to have to really focus on it and stop, uh, they need to come out at some point. So I'm like, I'm gonna let them come out. I'm gonna get it over with.
And may I
But
ask,
yeah, I was suppressing for like
don't
a whole
your
week.
parents watch your YouTube channel? Hmm. No, I found it interesting that
No,
because I found it interesting that
no.
they don't know about it, and it might be something that is subconsciously upsetting you, setting it off.
Uh, I don't know. Um, yeah, and if I were to go through, uh, I don't know. One part of me doesn't want to worry them. The other part doesn't um doesn't know how they'll react. And all of that. Um, so I don't want to. I don't want it to be. I don't want it to be a problem, and I don't want it to, uh, be something that they worry about or anything like that. Um, so I don't know. I don't know
I
how they
think
would
your
react
parents sound amazing. I think
wrongly,
your parents sound
but
so. I
I
think
don't
your whole
really.
family. I think I often say to my
I
wife,
don't.
"You like the epitome of an American dream." It sounds like you've got such a good family and that. And what would worry me is that, look how bad my Tourette's is at such a late age. I would worry that one day you would wake up and your Tourette's would be very bad. And I think it might
Yeah.
upset them more to see you so bad there, where maybe as now they could get used to it. And,
Yeah.
because I don't even think my niece notices my Tourette's that much. Where if her family see me once a week, they will say, yo, it's bad or whatever, because she sees me every day, so, but anyway, it's your journey, and, you're mature enough to know what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, you make some good points. I don't know. I don't. I don't like bringing it up unless unless it's necessary. Um, so I mean,
Because
if I don't know, it's not. It's kind of weird to bring it up, and then how do you bring it up without you know without being like hey, I've got this problem, and I don't want to bring it up in a way that's you know makes them think that I'm worried about it or makes them concerned about it. But then again, there's no really way around that.
and you've got to
And if it
keep
does
that
get
door
bad, then
open of it
then
getting bad.
what do you do then?
If you had said
So
to me this
yeah,
time last year, River, in August 2019, you're going to not be able to hold a cup of coffee. You're going to be breaking mirrors. You're not going to be able to be a massage therapist anymore. I would have told you you're lying. I would have said to you, no rubbish, because there's no way that I could have envisioned Tourette's for myself. And naturally I try to hide it, and there's many a day where I play it down, especially in front of my in-laws, because it can be something that is very upsetting. But the chances of your Tourette's getting worse is very possible. And, this week when we spoke about your work and your Tourette, your YouTube videos about when is it okay to need a break. Now, naturally, if you started taking a couple of days off more than normal, the owner of your business or your stepfather might like say to you, but what are you doing? You're taking too much time off. But if he understands your disorder or your Tourette syndrome, then he might say to you, you know what, son, we're going to run this business 4 days a week. That's it. Or our hours are now 7 till 3, and that's it. And our turnover doesn't have to be $3,000 a month. Our turnover has to be 1.8 a month. You know what I mean? He might be able to be in a position where he's more understanding. That's also why I tell people off the bat, listen,
yeah,
I've got Tourette's. because I'm just so worried that I'm going to call them a name, or, I'm going to throw something at them. So, and it's something my wife's taught me, just honesty, be like from the get go, this is what I've got.
Well, yeah, and things usually do work out better when people, uh, the more open you are with people, the better relationship you can have and all that. So I mean, things usually do work out better the more open you are, but it's
It
just
is. It
it's
is.
definitely
It's a shot.
awkward to have to
It's
come out
very,
and say these
it's,
things,
of course, it sounds like you've got parents that love and care for you. And, the hardest part about Tourette's for me is obviously the anxiety of having tics. But I often like wonder, my wife married quite a good looking guy. I'm not like other 42-year-olds that are fat and lazy and drink beer and smoke all day and go hunting. I quite like to think I'm quite a nice guy. But then I think, she can't even go into public with me. Since I've had Tourette's, we haven't eaten out once.
yeah.
We've never been on a date. We've never been out. And that's because of me. And, I often think of like, wow, how it affects her. But the bottom line is that's her journey. And I know she's going to stand by me no matter what.
hmm
And your parents, I have no doubt, they're going to stand by you no matter what.
Hello, Ticking Along here. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. I appreciate your time. If you would like to get further into the community, please feel free to join the Ticking Along Facebook page. You'll have to answer a few questions before being let in, but as soon as you answer those, I'll be sure to accept your request. If you want more content like this, please be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment or review on the podcast apps. Thank you. It's very appreciated, and it really helps out the podcast. Bye.